Hi, thanks again for tuning in for part 2 of the camshaft crisis saga that many of us find ourselves in nowadays. So the camshaft was removed from the 440 engine here, and I inspected it. And I'll get to that a little bit later here. There's one item I'd like to touch about this situation. After doing that video a couple days ago, I ended up with a bunch of comments, and a number of comments were sort of critical, and they were asking that maybe the problem was I was using mixed and matched components from different manufacturers, especially when I was saying about using the Mellings lifters with the comp cams. Well, initially when I built the 440 engine, the quench head engine, I had decided to choose the comp Extreme Energy 274H and matching lifters, and I also used the comp 911 matching valve springs. So this was a matched component from components from comps, right from their catalog. So I measured the valve springs; they're all within spec. I installed the cam and lifters, put it on the test stand to fire it up, and it wiped out the camshaft. And the first lifters were so badly damaged. They were a lot worse than this one here with the hole worn in it. I had 3 with holes worn in it, and the other one was almost with a hole in it, and it's delaminating. So these were extremely damaged lifters, 4 damaged lifters. I contacted Comp. I explained the situation. They gave me a return authorization number, and so I shipped the cam and lifters back to Comp for their inspection assessment. And about 2 weeks later, they got back to me. And the tech on the phone, he had a bunch of questions for me. And he wanted to know valve spring pressure, and he wanted to know how I fired it up and what RPM I used, and ultimately what break-in oil I was using. Well, I told him throughout my experience, I says I've been using the Lucas, the ZDDP additive to oils. I've been using the regular blended, high zinc blended break-in oil from Lucas, and I'm also using the blended break-in oil from Joe Gibbs. I says, and I had no problem up until this cam with any cam I've ever done with damaging cam and lifter. Anyways, they agreed to warranty the camshaft, and their recommendation was that I use Comp's break-in lube. Well, I respectfully disagreed. And my logic and reason for disagreeing was, well, all the lifters were damaged, all the lobes were damaged, but 4 were extremely damaged, and all of these lobes and lifters are being splashed by the same engine oil. I says, I don't understand why the damage wasn't catastrophic across all 16, lifters and lobes. And like I said, I got silence. And I'm not taking exception with the Comp employee. And I mean, they have a job to do, and I'm sure they're getting corporate directives on what to say and how to handle the process, and they're just going to warranty these items and make a recommendation. And like I say, I disagree. So the second cam I received, cam and lifters. Now I've lost faith in the Comp cam lifters. So I decided with this warranty cam, the second cam now, I'm going to use the Melling lifters. I've had good luck with the Mellings. I'm going to use the Mellings. So that's what I did. Second cam goes into the 6-pack, the quench head 6-pack engine. Fire it up. 7 minutes later, the camshaft's wiped out. And you see the results here of the lifters. And so we didn't... I'm no farther ahead. I'm a lot farther behind. I still don't have a camshaft. So after this, I says, well, forget it. I'm not going to bother calling Comp and sending this stuff back. And yeah, okay, even if they agree to warranty it, I'm not going to run it. I've completely lost faith in this stuff. There's no chance I'm going to put this in another engine and go through this same procedure again. So my customer and I, we sat down, and we had a good long discussion after a bunch of research and phone calls, and we decided to go with the Hughes roller arrangement. And, well, you've seen that in the videos, right? The engine runs fine. The engine's great. So no problem that way. One other thing I wanted to point out, too, other people were saying, was it the same lifter location? where the 4 lifters got wiped out. No, they weren't. They were completely different locations from the first engine to the second engine. So it's not a spray pattern coming from the camshaft or from the RPM I was running or anything like that. Completely different location for the lifters. I have pictures of them here. I don't know if I can put them on YouTube or not. And I'll see if I can hook them up in the comment section or not. But anyways, this is what's happened. So that's the information on the comp cams with the 446 pack. It was matched components initially. Now getting to the cam dynamic one, I got lucky. Get you squared up here. There we go. So I got lucky with inspection. Little paint daubs on the lobes are where the damaged lifters were located. And upon visual inspection, right, the lobes are all in good shape. Some of them have a little bit of excessive wear to the high side of the lobe, because you have to remember these are ground right with a taper. One side's 2 to 3 thou higher than this side. So I expect the high side to wear before the low side. But it still has that dark edges. This is a little bit gone on this one. Moving over to these other two. All right, same, good pattern. There's actually a bit of a dark edge on both sides, so no bad wear there. This one, same thing. Almost goes to the edge here on the high side, but there's a bit of a dark edge here. And the wear pattern for the one at the front actually has an excellent wear pattern on it, so I wasn't concerned about this at all. And all the other 16 lobes, good wear patterns across the nose, no issues whatsoever. So I can use this camshaft again with no concerns with the Johnson lifters, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't think this camshaft needs parkerizing, and after I did the visual inspection, right, I took it over, and for those of you that have never had to do this before, make yourself up a little bracket like this for your bench and mount the camshaft in something like this. It is so much more convenient to measure the lobes this way, where you can rotate the camshaft, because you've got the minimum 16 measurements, right? 2 measurements per lobe, right? To measure for the taper, right? Then you're measuring for base circle, and it beats fighting with the camshaft on the bench or putting soft jaws in a vise and squeezing it between soft jaws and then opening and closing the vise to rotate it to do 16, lobes. The other thing I want to mention too is this item here. The windage tray is save that 6-pack engine. 90% of the debris from those lifters and that camshaft was caught by the windage tray. So anybody looking to use a flat tappet camshaft in a build might seriously want to consider running a windage tray to catch any debris or potential debris that may, fall out from the destruction of a camshaft and lifter. And even with rollers, and if you're really winding engines up and stuff, it's not a bad idea. I say it saved me an oil pump and possibly a crankshaft. So one other thing I wanted to mention too about my engine building experiences and why I haven't had any. I've had many friends and people in the business say, how come you've never had a camshaft wipeout? I said, well, I'm not really sure. I mean, I always do the process like I showed you last week. I do a lot of visual inspections. But, I think the really mitigating factor was that those of you that remember what eBay was like in the 90s, it was a really good place to go to buy performance equipment, used, new, etc., whatever. It's not like it is now, where what I call the parasites have come on and taken over. There was just regular Joes and regular businesses and guys that were going, had parts and pieces they didn't want anymore, and they just auctioned them off. And sometimes you got a really good deal, and other times, but you still paid below market value for good stuff. I mean, there's junk, but whatever. I bid on what I thought at that time was a set of high-performance Chryslers, 16 high-performance Chryslers lifters. And I really didn't read the whole auction description. So anyways, I bid on these 16 lifters, and lo and behold, I get a message back from eBay, hey, you won the auction. And I get the invoice, and I forget what I got. I bid on the lifters. It was a real deal. I don't know, $12, $16 or something. I think they were like $1 a piece or whatever. I can't remember. Anyways, I get this you owe us 400 and some odd dollars plus shipping. And I'm going like, what happened? And sure, I went back and I looked at the auction agreement. And I guess it was an auction house that was liquidating a machine shop or a parts store or somebody that had a whole bunch of parts. And someone separated the parts into Chrysler, Chevys, Fords, blah, blah, blah. And I happened to bid on hundreds and hundreds of brand new old stock lifters. And they were basic stock lifters and high performance lifters. And they were Sealed Power, Speed Pro, TRW, Mopar, all different brands and all in the little cardboard boxes, all individually packed. But they were all brand new, all new old stock. So it was a lesson to learn. And I mean, I was man enough to say, I wasn't gonna say, I didn't bid on this. I mean, it was a mistake, it was a lesson that turned out to be a blessing. So I had access to new old stock lifters that are probably as old as this camshaft, which is, I purchased this cam in the 1980s. This was ground when the cores were made in America. This is not a Chinese core. This is not an offshore core. Cam Dynamics was grinding American steel and using a process to harden it. That's why this cam is I think this is why this cam has survived this damage. It's a properly ground cam. It's proper chemistry cam, and it's a properly hardened cam because it's from that era. It's at least 40 years old, maybe it's 50 years old. I don't know. This grind was around in the late 70s, so it's been around a long time. I would admit, when I was building engines during that time, I wouldn't hesitate to go to my collection of lifters, depend on whether it was a high performance cam or basically a stop cam, and pick the lifters that would match the cam. No problems. And that's why I didn't have any problems. And I think that was why I ended up not having a camshaft failure until just recently. I used up my supply of lifters within the last 12, 14 months. And here I am using lifters that are manufactured today. Like the comp cam here grind was manufactured 09/21 in 2021. So where we're at today, and as far as solutions go to this problem, and this is something I want to talk about. There's already an organization that exists, and it's called SEMA. Now, this is an organization that represents all these aftermarket companies. Go online and read their mission statement. And I highlighted the one portion of it. Emphasizes education to members focus on and achieve acceptable world-class quality standards. Well, I don't see quality standards coming out of these suppliers anymore that are part of SEMA. So maybe it's time to start going after SEMA and making our voices heard as individuals, as business people, as shops. Email them, call them, snail mail them, do whatever, and start sharing your experiences, our experiences, and let them know what the hell is going on and what they're doing about it. And if you want to go online, you can read the history of SEMA. And it started, the original name was Speed Equipment Manufacturers Association. And then they changed it over to Specialty Equipment Market Association. I'm not sure if anybody knows what date they changed that over. Please let me know. I don't know when that happened. But I highlighted a few things in their history article. These guys are a shade under $30 billion a year in sales, retail sales. And there's 6,382 corporate members. And go online and read all this stuff. Quite interesting. But what are they doing for the consumer? I mean, they put on a hell of a big trade show down there in Las Vegas every year. They know how to throw a party. But I didn't see anything on their website dealing with issues, especially this camshaft and lifter issue that's going on. So what do these guys actually represent? And I think it's time to get an answer. And this is part of the solution, I'm thinking. Go after, right? Start making our voices heard instead of complaining to each other on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Because these guys don't care about you and I bitching to each other on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Or sitting at the coffee shop or sitting in the pits complaining about how many camshafts we screwed up, or how many, not we screwed up, or how we've been the victim of this notoriously inept quality control process. And that's what it is. It's a notoriously inept quality control process from these organizations, from these businesses. The second thing I want to do, after talking about SEMA, is maybe, and unfortunately, the most of it's going to be, it has to be led by you Americans. As a Canadian, these companies aren't based in Canada. We have basically very little recourse, legally or otherwise. But the thing I was thinking about is maybe we could get some kind of organization going between, us hardcore builders and hardcore hobbyists and those that are professionals and making a living in this business, say buying some of these camshafts in an organized manner from these companies and sending them to a certified lab for dissection and for rock wall hardness testing. Buy a bunch of Chevy flat tappet grinds, buy a bunch of Ford flat tappet grinds, Mopars, AMCs, Pontiacs, whatever. Get us a segment from across the market and from across a number of different manufacturers, Comps, Howards, Mellings, I don't care, pick them all. Pick some from every of them and send them off to certified labs. I can send I can send that damaged one out myself for an assessment, but I'm not a certified lab. And so my results aren't going to carry any weight whatsoever. And I see guys on YouTube doing the same thing. They got access to a rock wall tester, and they're testing, the rock wall hardness on a lifter or rock wall hardness on a cam lobe. And if they get a questionable number, they make an announcement in their video. But what do you do about it? And no one's going to take that seriously because they are not certified or credentialized, and it's the credentials that matter to get the attention of the industry. Now, if I'm not mistaken, for you Americans, I believe 15%, when it comes to, say, maybe Ford or General Motors or whatever, if 15% of their cars are defective, you guys are doing class action lawsuits to rectify the problem. I think you did that with the 5.4 3-liter valve Ford Triton engine, didn't you, just a little while ago? And many, many other cases over the years. Maybe it's time to close our wallets and start putting some pressure, going back to, what was it here? 29.9 billion a year retail industry. Maybe it's time to start pushing back a bit. Close your wallets. Don't be so eager to go off and say, oh yeah, we're just going to go for a roller camshaft. This technology's been around for damn near 100 years and there's nothing wrong with it. And there was never nothing wrong with it. And it's not the oils. The oils are the scapegoats. It's easy to denounce the oils, and it's the most difficult to prove. This takes a rock wall hardness tester and some ASTM testing to tell me what the chemical analysis is, how much carbon, how much manganese, whatever the recipe is that they use that is required for this, we'd know it and we'd be able to test for it. Anyways, that's food for thought. I don't want to use up any more of the time here. This video is running, fairly long the way it is. But please contact me and talk amongst, yourselves, and talk amongst those that share the interest in this hobby, and talk to the businesses involved with this that are seeing and reaping the downside of this. like I am. Anyways, thanks for your time, and we'll follow up on this some more. Bye-bye now.